welcome inside the desk of Alexander Garrett. It's the March Madness desk, I guess you could say, or whatever you want to call it, as college basketball gets underway for day 2 of the round of 64. Now it's 32, and 3 teams not in the tournament anymore are, unfortunately, St. John's, Seton Hall, and Syracuse. 3 teams that are close to my heart, as at the radio station I work at. We are the flagship for them. And thanks to Dave Popkin for joining me yesterday. But just a rough tournament overall for those 3 teams. St. John's barely showing up on Wednesday night. Seton Hall gutting it out. Could not beat Fletcher McGee. And what do you mean? Well, McGee coming into yesterday with Wofford was about to have a record number of 3s in the NCAA. Well, last night, in the big tournament, first round game against Seton Hall, the kid did indeed make history for Wofford and for the tournament.
Now backs out with 7 to shoot. Murphy accelerates down the left of the lane, stops at the elbow to the wing. McGee. McKnight went for the steal. McGee turns for the 3, and he hits it. McKnight tried to step in the passing lane. That left McGee an opening, and that is the record, his 505th career three-pointer. That's the most in NCAA history.
And that was Gary Cohen on Learfield IMG College / AM 970, the answer for Seton Hall basketball. So, McGee breaks the record. Wofford goes on to win it. They will now play a Kentucky team that wiped out Abilene Christian. But I want to take a moment here before I get to my next segment. That we've heard about the college cheating, and don't get me wrong, NCAA basketball, NCAA has a lot of work to do cleaning itself up, right? But schools like Wofford, schools like Fairleigh Dickinson, even Seton Hall, these schools that are sort of small townish, that don't get the national recognition like a Duke would, like a UNC would, like a Kentucky would, like even Virginia this year would, Tennessee this year as well. The non-elite schools should be getting more praise, because amidst all the skepticism now about college, these kids at these schools, and even the big schools too, there are kids out there that do it. Like Zion, he earns every minute on the floor. These kids earn every minute on the floor. They earn their spot on the March Madness tournament floor. The time they are able to play in it, they earn that. They're taught by their parents to earn it. And those are the kids, those are the teams and programs and families that should be highlighted. Not what Lori Loughlin or Felicity Huffman is doing with their kids. That's just elitism right in front of our face. Why don't we roll up our sleeves and focus on the schools and the kids and the players that are working hard to make it happen daily? Why don't we focus on them? Why aren't there more profiles on them? Why do we have to be splashed across the headlines with Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman? We know they're going to find any way they can. They're in Hollywood. Of course they will. But what about talking about the kids that will legitimately find their way any way they can to be successful, to be on that floor, to play basketball in the tournament? And you see the cheers when Selection Sunday happens. I hope what comes out of all this tournament is recognition that, yeah, these kids are special, and they need more recognition than some kid that was paid to be on a team without having any experience. And I feel like that needs to be back. Those highlights need to be back. Now, very cool. Yesterday in Japan, Ichiro, a guy who also worked very hard to get from Japan to the major leagues and was darn good at it, he said goodbye. And I caught up with he retired in the 8th inning, I believe, against Oakland. By the way, Seattle's 2-0 to open up the season. But I got to hear from a fan in Seattle, right in the heart of Seattle, who's seen Ichiro since he came to the league 18 years ago. And he had some thoughts. Jeff Engels is his name, and take a listen to this because this did happen for Ichiro. This whole retirement ceremony was not to be missed.
Wait a minute. Scott Service has come out, and the Mariners players are going to gather. This will be the moment.
And that was the scene in the Tokyo Dome. You know, every year, a few years, they have the Japan series. This year was Oakland and Seattle. And Ichiro, in his native Japan, calls it quits today. And, you know, I have on the line with me someone who's not only an avid Seattleman, he is from Seattle, but I met him on Radio Row 5 years ago before the Seahawks trounced the Denver Broncos on Radio Row. Jeff Engels, he was in his huge Seattle getup for the Seahawks, and he loves the Seahawks and the Mariners just as much. And Jeff, I'm sure you remember that day very well when we met up at Radio Row.
How could I forget? It was a different day than today, though. This Ichiro thing is a little sadder, bittersweet, but yet historic moment for Seattle and baseball fans around the world, I think. And I can safely say around the world today.
Now, you follow his career. I mean, you're from Seattle. You're a diehard Mariner fan. First of all, did you get up that early? Because you're so avid. Did you get up at 2:30 in the morning to watch this unfold?
I tried to stay up, and then I had to watch the reruns and then get up early and watch clips. But I did finally see the whole thing. Oh, my gosh, yes. But I've seen it. I saw it.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, one of his first years was when they won that 116-win season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, in 2001. Yes, indeed. And I remember, I don't know. I remember actually being at the last game that Ichiro was a Mariner as well, the day they traded him. And I also saw him come back in a Yankees uniform.
How was that? I mean, you know, he wasn't that bad with the Yanks, to be honest with you. He still had it even as he was a little older.
Well, let's just put it this way. In Seattle, we've never been to the World Series. We don't have 27 World Series, so it's a little different sort of sports culture here. Outside of the Seahawks, who have a lot of bandwagon fans, to be a Mariners fan, like I've been since the 70s, has just been you have to be a kind of a strange cat to begin with. But Ichiro, Griffey, Edgar Martinez, Randy Johnson, we've had some great players here. And Ichiro certainly rates right up there at the top.
And a no doubt Hall of Famer, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah. I was wondering if I was going to go back this year to be there for Edgar or wait 5 more years for Ichiro. So I'm not quite sure. My grandfather played for the Yankees, as a matter of fact, and I have some baseball stuff I want to bring back to Cooperstown. So that's a whole other
tell us about that. That's a fun story.
Well, his name was Gordon Rhodes, and he pitched for the Yankees from 29 to 32. And then he was traded to Boston and then the Athletics. So he came up from the Hollywood Stars system, and my mom was born in New York. So I have a connection there. I love New York, and I love the way New York people love baseball.
Now, you know, your guy is actually a Yankee farm system farmhand now, Russell Wilson. So he's got that baseball connection as well.
Well, I hope we don't get the baseball connection or the connection where Russell Wilson becomes a New York Giant starting quarterback next year when you guys toss us 3 first-rounders. But that's a whole other story. But
Ichiro, what was his contribution to Seattle? I guess you guys call it the Emerald City. What was his contribution up there?
Well, you know what was different? I mean, the first 10 years, every home game that Ichiro played at, there was at least 100 people from Japan that came. You could tell. And they had come to watch him play for the series. And that was different. You know, and of course the chant, Ichiro, Ichiro. I didn't, you know, at first, just all those singles used to bug me. But then when they started adding up, it was a different story because he supposedly could have hit home runs anytime he wanted. He had such great bat control. He was like a Vladimir Guerrero, whose kid's coming up now, and he could unlike a lot of hitters where you hold back, and just swing, he adjusted his swing midway. And that's what separates guys like him. There's only a few like that.
And, he was a great slap hitter. He doesn't really get enough credit for that, but he knew how to slap the ball the other way and run as he was hitting it. I mean, that was something to see nearly every night out.
Well, and it's sad to see, last night's game where he just barely missed out on that single. But this is the problem. He's 45, and you could just see him in the last 2 or 3 years just be a step off, just that half step. That's what makes the difference. Otherwise, he'd be still getting 200 hits a year. And how about the stretching routines? I could practically do them all myself, where you get in the crowds and they stretch the one arm.
Oh, that's right. That was pretty classic. Yep.
The kids loved him. He was good for our international relations here in Seattle. Again, our bittersweet pill to swallow here is when we've had players like that, and we've had Randy Johnson, Griffey, Edgar Martinez, but never get to the World Series. And we're rebuilding now. So this is just a funny moment. I had already written off the Mariners this year and said I wasn't going to be a fan. Then you called, and now I'm watching, and now I'm back. I'm hooked again. What are you doing?
You know what? Beckham, he's something to watch. The kid hit a homer today with the bat flip that everybody saw.
I know. Well, maybe we got a shot. You never know. Anything can happen. But it was just a really wonderful moment to see those. Can you imagine the Japanese fans and how long they've worshipped Ichiro, and finally get to see their hero retire right in front of them there. And for once, the Seattle Mariners and Major League Baseball did it right. They had a real send-off for a real superstar that wasn't some big drama. Now, I got to
ask, you're such an avid sports fan. Do you call into radio shows and talk about this with the Seattle Sports Talk?
Oh, sometimes. Who I used to call is your guy, Adam Shine. I'd come and jump on him sometimes, but I've kind of given up because the Seattle area, it's like we don't really have that many hardcore baseball fans. They kind of want just the mediocre fans, and that's who fills the stadiums. People like me who get upset because we don't play to win. They don't want much to do with this.
And it's a tourist it's a tourist city. I mean, you got Yankee fans coming in there. You got a lot of different teams when they're there actually get fans in the seats as well. So that's
lots of them. That makes it even harder. When the Toronto comes, everybody from Vancouver comes down and fill up the stand. So it wasn't that way from 95 to 2001. We were contenders. We were players. We had great teams, and
hey, you knocked off Mattingly and the Yankees there in '95.
In '95, I was at those games. I was there at the series. Yeah, I was there when Griffey came in to score, and that compared to the New York Yankees, it's not much, but you know what? Ichiro was just a gentle, humble influence on the game, and it sure needs it at times, doesn't it?
It does, and you've said you don't know which one to go to. Well, I'm kind of stuck in the same predicament because I know Jeter's going to get in. So do I go for Mariano or Jeter? I mean, both of them had such great, obviously they're great. But
they're already talking and there's going to be no room because the New York guys get in there. All you guys will be there, and it's going to be hard to get up there. If I lived in New York, my friend, I would be there, and I hope we can stay in touch. When I come back with my baseball memorabilia, I'd like to show you some of this stuff.
Absolutely, Jeff. Talking with Jeff Engels, he's sort of an on-the-ground reporter for me. He's a fan. He's a hardcore Seattle fan. By the way, I don't know how hardcore he's going to be about the new hockey team coming in. I know Seattle wants basketball mainly because they lost it to Oklahoma City. But, hey, hockey's not a bad addition.
No, it'd be fun. It's something different, something to wrap my head around, and that's fine. I'm mostly, I guess, if I had to say, I'm a baseball fan first, and put right behind that is football. And our glory days have been few and far between out here, but Ichiro was just, he's our guy. He fits in with our kind of mellow personality, but boy, he could play too. He had some games, seasons.
Yeah, and I mean I think he won the batting title at least once, if I'm not mistaken, in the field.
Yeah, I think a couple times, and he had what was that one? I think one year he had 371, which these days that's pretty high.
And he kind of paved the way for players like Hideki Matsui. He paved the way for those hitters to come into Japan, unlike anyone else had before him.
Oh, then what was that? What did they call him? Godzilla or whatever. And then he had some monster years there at the Yankees, some big games, big playoff games. Oh my God!
Well, in 2003, he was a good hitter there, and then in 2009, he won the series MVP.
And then you had Tino. You took Tino Martinez. Yeah, I don't want to get going. These trades with the Yankees, one side. Oh, yeah.
And now we have James Paxton, so we'll see how that works out.
But the last one we gave you was that other pitcher that we got for Montero, the catcher. What's the pitcher name? Big guy.
Corbin?
Not Pinero, but...
Pineda. Michael Pineda?
Pineda. What happened? Did he just bomb out, I guess?
He kind of did. I mean, it was... he actually hurt himself in spring training a few years ago, but... He's
gone. I'll be darned. Well, anyway, Ichiro Suzuki, he played there, too, for the Yankees.
That's right.
I don't even know how did the fans receive him well there?
Oh, yeah, they loved him. Now, while I got you on the phone, let's talk a little bit about baseball today. I mean, obviously, the Mariners don't have Cano anymore. The Mariners, do they still have Cruz? I'm blanking on that. They still have Nelson.
No,
Cruz.
He went to Minnesota.
That's right, he left.
Yeah,
so you guys,
one year deal.
It's a little bit of a barren team up there, but they didn't do that bad to open up the season.
2-0. I don't even know the names of the players all yet. So that's how far I've been. I just was pretending I was going on strike, but I'm getting pulled back in it. My wife told me you'll be following them, so
and hey,
the season's on.
I really want to go see Safeco. It looks like one of the most beautiful gems in all the stadiums. Really, it's a beautiful.
In July and August, you got to come out here. We'll review some of this baseball memorabilia. We'll talk sports. I'm so glad to hear from you again. I do remember being on Radio Row. Me and a friend kind of snuck back there, and I just was wandering around with my 12th man gear, and Dave Craig, former quarterback from the Seahawks, came up to me and said, "Hey, 12th man, I'm Dave Craig." He came up to me to introduce himself. So
well, there you go.
Part of all that.
And you guys cherish the 12th man. I mean, that is a religion of sorts up there in Seattle.
Which is us, the fans. Yeah, the felt. That's the thing. So, but I'm telling you, Ichiro, and he would just get those slap hits, and beat him out, and he had an arm, and he was always smiling, always stretching. It was just a magic era, I guess. And he
was not a bad throw. I mean, he could still gun it even as of yesterday to third base. But what part of Seattle are you? What part of Washington State are you out of?
Oh, I live right in the city now. I've lived all over the state, but I live right in Seattle, North Seattle. I'm 10 minutes from the stadium, so I'll be going to some games.
All right, well, we'll see how the AOS comes out. I mean, obviously, Trout this week signing that $435 or whatever $1 million contract.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's because
he's a monster, but they haven't won anything since 2002, I think it was, and they went, and so even with Trout. So, it's a funny game.
It is, and I don't know, now they don't have Sosha because he actually retired, or he quit.
He gave up, yeah. Oakland, look how they do every year with nothing. No fans, no money, nothing, and they're in the playoffs. So, if they can make it in there, I'm kind of thinking, I suppose we could. Huh.
It just takes a few
we'd
bounces.
Love to have it. Yeah, it's good, 35-year-old Ichiro out there, but we don't. He's gone, and what a send-off. What a send-off. It was just first class.
Yeah. Oh, no, this was one of the best send-offs I've ever seen for any player. I mean, the Jeter one was pretty good, but this one was electric, I guess you'd say. So.
Yeah. Huh. There's magic. Yeah, Jeter, don't get me started. What a great player he was. I remember the greatest play, of course, of Jeter is I remember, and you must know this play, I think it was Oakland in, 04, 05, and he had the instincts of an infielder, and I'm an infielder too, and he had the instincts to just, for some reason, be right there by home plate because that throw came up a little short and then toss it back to the catcher and make the play. That was one of the greatest plays I've ever seen. He had instincts. Nobody else makes that play. Nobody knows. You know what I mean? Remember that play?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Play.
I mean, who can forget that play? And it's funny, Scooter then reenacted that when he threw the first pitch out back in New York. I mean, that was a classic. Anyway, Jeff, I've got to get rolling here, but thank you so much for joining Keeping It Real with Alexander Garrett. Second time appearing on this podcast, so thank you so much for joining me.
All right. See you later.
Talk to you then. I'm Alexander Garrett. That was Jeff Engels live from Seattle about Ichiro retiring. And that's it for me here on Keeping It Real. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the rest of the tournament action for this weekend. And then, of course, just around the corner is baseball opening day. We'll be back here on Keeping It Real with Alexander Garrett. Alex G in NYC. That's Alex G in NYC on Twitter and Alex G in NYC on Instagram as well. Talk to you soon.